All right, welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're breaking down Chelsea's 3-1 win over Wolves last weekend.
Should be interesting.
Definitely. We've got loads of post-match analysis to dig into, plus some expert opinions, and even a quick chat with one of the goal scorers.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So yeah, we're going way beyond the headlines today, folks. Really going to try to uncover some of the hidden stories behind this victory.
I mean, on the surface, it seems like a straightforward win. But
Exactly, but there's always more to it than meets the eye, right?
Right.
So to set the scene, Chelsea end their 5-match winless streak with this 3-1 win, and of course, it puts them right back in the top 4.
Huge implications with that win. It's not just about the 3 points. That win boosts morale, secures that top 4 spot, and I think, most importantly, gives them momentum going into their next match against Man City.
Talk about a momentum swing, huh? And it seems like the manager knows that. You know, he keeps saying that even when the results weren't there, the team was playing well.
Interesting.
Yeah, like he said in the post-match presser, in the last 5 games, we didn't win, but as I've said many times, the performance was there. He even added, we created many chances, we didn't score, and tonight we finally scored 3 goals. What do you make of that? Is he trying to, I don't know, reassure the fans or the players maybe? Or even himself?
It's probably a bit of all 3, to be honest. But the interesting thing for me is how he's using those performance metrics, like chances created, areas controlled, all that stuff, to paint a picture of a team that's been playing well, despite the lack of wins on the scoreboard.
Right.
I think that can be a powerful psychological tool, especially for a young team that might be starting to doubt themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. But here's the thing. Chelsea's goalkeeper, Robert Sanchez, he made a pretty big mistake that led to Wolves' only goal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And despite that, the manager defended him pretty strongly. He actually said, how many times has he saved us? I think more than 4. Robert is doing well. So now I'm a bit confused. How can you praise a player who made such a, obvious and costly error?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And it really highlights the complexity of how we evaluate goalkeepers.
Yeah.
We have this tendency to focus on those glaring errors because they're so visually impactful.
Yeah, they stick out.
But we often forget about all those incredible saves they make.
It's all about the highlights, right?
Right. And it makes you wonder, maybe Sanchez has actually prevented more goals than he's conceded because of errors. So it forces us to ask ourselves, are we judging goalkeepers fairly, or are we falling victim to that highlight reel effect?
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It's like we judge players based on their most memorable moments rather than their, overall consistency.
Absolutely.
Okay, on to something else that really jumped out at me. 3 of Chelsea's goals were scored by defenders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no kidding. Thiago Silva, he got one from a corner. Then Trevoh Chalobah added another. He actually nearly had a hat-trick, too. One of the Wolves defenders almost headed the ball into his own net, and it would have gone down as a Chalobah goal.
Wow. So what did all the defenders just suddenly decide to become strikers? What's going on there?
All right.
I mean, it's obviously not that simple. But you've stumbled upon a really interesting tactical trend that's becoming increasingly important in modern football.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's the rise of set pieces.
Yeah.
I think Chelsea clearly targeted Wolves' vulnerability in this area. They came in with a plan,
Interesting.
And think about it. Wolves have conceded 18 goals from set pieces this season.
18?
Yeah. That's almost a goal a game. So Chelsea's manager, I think he recognized this weakness and knew they could exploit it.
Wow. So it wasn't just luck. It was like a calculated strategy.
Exactly. And it worked brilliantly.
Speaking of brilliant, we got to chat with Noni Madueke, who scored that final goal for Chelsea. And he told us this funny story about how he basically stole the goal from Chalobah. Chalobah was making his comeback from injury that game, and Madueke kind of swooped in and got the goal instead.
No way.
Yeah. He said, sorry to Trey Afterman, assist on his first game back is great for him, but I had to put this in the net. For sure. What do you think about that?
It's so cool to see those glimpses of personality and camaraderie, even amidst the intensity of a Premier League match.
For sure.
Madueke's comment, I think it really reveals that competitive instinct, especially as a young player trying to, make his mark. But also you can sense that underlying respect and friendship within the team.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that these guys are real people, not just robots programmed to score goals. But speaking of that competitive instinct, the manager had some interesting things to say about Madueke in the post-match presser.
Ooh.
Yeah, he praised his talent, but then publicly challenged him, saying he's capable of much more, he's got huge potential. Now, is this a good motivational tactic? Or is it putting too much pressure on a young player? What do you think?
That's a really complex question. And honestly, there's no easy answer. On the one hand, that public criticism could light a fire under a player, push them to prove their doubters wrong. But on the other hand, it could backfire, crush their confidence, and hinder their development. What do you think? Have you ever experienced that kind of public challenge? Did it motivate you, or did it make you more self-conscious?
That's a really good question. I'm going to have to think about that. But it definitely makes you think about like the different ways people respond to criticism and how those dynamics play out in a high-pressure environment like professional football.
Yeah, for sure. It really makes you think about how different personalities react. You know? Some thrive under pressure, others not so much.
Absolutely. But before we, go too deep into the psychology of it all,
right,
there's still so much more to unpack about this match.
Yeah, for sure. Like we haven't even touched on some of those individual performances.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's those like unsung heroes in the background.
Right.
The players that don't always grab the headlines.
Right, the glue guys.
Exactly. And the experts have been raving about one player in particular, Kalidou Koulibaly. Yeah. He might not be the flashiest player out there, but they see him as a real leader, potentially a future captain for Chelsea.
That's interesting. I mean, he doesn't exactly scream leader,
Yeah, I got what you mean.
What makes the experts think that about him?
Well, they're pointing to his consistency, his work ethic, the way he organizes the defense. He doesn't necessarily have to be the loudest voice out there, but he leads by example. And that's such a valuable quality, especially in a team with so many young developing players.
Yeah. It's like he's the steady hand guiding the ship through stormy waters.
Exactly. Perfect analogy.
Right.
And speaking of steady, we have to talk about Trevoh Chalobah's comeback performance. He was sidelined with that ankle injury, right? But slotted straight back into the starting lineup and looked incredibly comfortable.
Oh, he was great. Didn't miss a beat.
Right. And that says so much about his resilience and the trust the manager has in him, too. To start a player who hasn't been fully training with the team is a pretty bold move, but it definitely paid off. I mean, Chalobah was instrumental in that victory, both defensively and with that crucial second goal. Some of the commentators even had him down as man of the match.
Yeah, he was definitely in the running. But we can't forget about the other defenders either, like Thiago Silva. He continues to be a rock at the back, even as he gets a little older, shall we say.
He's ageless, isn't he?
Yeah, truly.
A true masterclass in reading the game and positioning himself perfectly. It's like experience can be just as valuable as raw athleticism, and Silva just proves that week in and week out.
Couldn't agree more. And how about that incredible run from Cucurella that led to the second goal? The analysts were raving about his vision and decision-making on that play.
Oh, yeah, that was a beauty.
Yeah, it was a brilliant individual effort, but it also kind of showcases the attacking intent of Chelsea's system as a whole.
Totally. Modern fullbacks, they have to be more than just defenders. They need to be able to contribute going forward.
Right.
And Cucurella's run was the perfect example of that, that evolving role. Started the play in his own half, then boom, surges forward, and suddenly he's in a perfect position to set up the goal.
Yeah, a real box-to-box player these days. Okay, last shout out to individual brilliance before we move on. We got to talk about Noni Madueke again. He was electric whenever he got on the ball, causing the Wolves' defense all sorts of problems.
Oh, yeah, he was a real handful, wasn't he?
Yeah. And that final goal, even though it was almost an own goal,
right,
it just highlighted his instincts as an attacker. Right place, right time, ready to capitalize on any opportunity.
Exactly. And, remember what we were saying earlier about the manager challenging him to reach his full potential.
Yeah.
I think Madueke's responding to that challenge with real enthusiasm and a willingness to work hard.
It's always great to see that in a young player, that drive. But speaking of the game as a whole, the experts noted that the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge was, well, a bit subdued at times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, especially in the first half.
That's interesting. I wonder if, maybe the crowd's energy or a lack thereof impacts the players, especially a young team like Chelsea. What do you think? Do the players feed off the roar of the crowd, or can they create their own momentum regardless of the atmosphere?
It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, isn't it?
Totally.
But, once Chelsea got that second goal, the atmosphere completely changed. It was like everyone in the stadium, players and fans, suddenly believed that victory was within reach.
Yeah, it's like a switch flips.
Definitely.
There's definitely this like symbiotic relationship between the players and the fans, right?
Yeah.
When the team is playing well, the crowd gets louder, which then motivates the players even more. It's like a positive feedback loop that can really propel a team to victory.
Absolutely. It's incredible how much we can learn from just one match. We've gone from, the basic significance of Chelsea's win to tactical analysis, individual performances, crowd psychology, all sorts of stuff.
It's a real deep dive, isn't it?
It really is. But before we, wrap things up, I think there's one more crucial aspect of this match that we need to revisit.
You're talking about Wolves and their, shall we say, Achilles heel.
Exactly. Remember those 18 goals they've conceded from set pieces?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right. That's a staggering number.
It really is. And, it raises a fascinating question.
Okay.
Is this just a Wolves problem?
Right.
Or are set pieces becoming increasingly decisive across the Premier League as a whole?
It really makes you wonder. I mean, we saw firsthand how effective Chelsea were at exploiting those set pieces.
Right.
But are other teams having similar success? Are set pieces becoming like the new game changer in the Premier League?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like they've been overlooked for so long.
Yeah.
When we talk about tactics and strategy.
Totally. Like for years, they were seen as this, separate mini game, almost a lottery.
Right. A bit of a coin toss.
Yeah, exactly. But what if teams are finding new ways to take the luck out of it? What if they can consistently score from corners and free kicks? That's a huge advantage.
Absolutely massive. It would completely change the dynamics of the game. Suddenly a foul near the box, a corner, it all becomes a prime scoring opportunity.
I never thought about it like that.
And think about it. It could even change the way teams build their squads. Imagine prioritizing players who are tall, strong, real aerial threats.
Right.
It's like we're entering a new era of tactical innovation.
Wow. It's amazing how one small change, like just an increased emphasis on set pieces, could have this ripple effect across the entire Premier League. It's almost like, I don't know, a butterfly flapping its wings and causing a hurricane on the other side of the world.
Maybe not that dramatic.
Okay, maybe not. But you get the idea.
I do.
Yeah.
And it really just shows you how football is always evolving,
Yeah.
Just when you think you've got it all figured out, something new emerges that challenges those assumptions and forces you to adapt.
And that's what keeps it so interesting, right?
Exactly. There's always more to learn, more layers to uncover. Speaking of which, it's probably time for us to wrap things up. But first, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've talked about today.
Wow. Yeah. Where do we even begin? We went from the immediate impact of Chelsea's win to the tactical side of things, set pieces, the psychology of players and managers, the role of fullbacks, crowd psychology, even how we judge goalkeepers.
We covered a lot of ground. What stood out to you the most?
I think for me, it's just how much goes on beneath the surface of a football match. We see the goals, the saves, the tackles, but there's this whole hidden world of tactics, psychology, and ultimately human stories that we don't often get to see.
And that's what these deep dives are all about, right? We get to slow down, analyze, appreciate the complexity and nuance that gets lost in all the excitement. So, to everyone listening, what resonated with you today? What will you be thinking about long after this deep dive is over?
Yeah, what new insights will you take with you to your next football conversation or your next viewing experience? Who knows, maybe you'll even start noticing those set pieces in a whole new light. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep questioning, and of course, keep diving deep.